The kings were educated men in their own right, who not only had important libraries but also wrote treatises on a wide array of subjects ranging from astrology and medicine to agriculture and genealogy. 110. A 13th century book illustration produced in Baghdad by Al-Ways to showing a slave market in the town of Zabid in Yemen. They had a difficult relationship with the Mamluks of Egypt because the latter considered them a vassal state. 110. The competition centered over the Hijaz and the right to provide Kiswa of Ka'aba in Mecca. 110. The dynasty became increasingly threatened by disgruntled family members over the problem of succession, combined by periodic tribal revolts, as they were locked in a war of attrition with the Zaydi Imams in the northern highlands. 112. During the last 12 years of Rashid rule, the country was torn between several contenders for the kingdom. Huyakining of the Rashid provided an opportunity for the Banu Taha clan to take over and establish themselves as the new rulers of Yemen in 1454 AD. 111. Tahirite dynasty, 1454-1517. The Tahirites were a local clan based in Rada. They built schools, mosques, and irrigation channels, as well as water systems and bridges in Zabid, Aden, Rada, and Juban. Their best-known monument is the Amiriya Madrasa in Rada district, which was built in 1504. 113. The Tahirite were too loyal either to contain the Zaydi Imams or to defend themselves against foreign attacks. Realizing how rich the Tahirite realm was, the Mamluks decided to conquer it. 114. The Mamluk army, with the support of forces loyal to Zaydi Imam al-Mutawakkil Yahya Sharaf ad-Din, conquered the entire rear arm of the Tahirite but failed to capture Aden in 1517. The Mamluk victory was short-lived. The Ottoman Empire conquered Egypt, hanging the last Mamluk Sultan in Cairo. 114. The Ottomans had not decided to conquer Yemen until 1538. The Zaydi highland tribes emerged as national heroes. 115. By Portuguese Viceroy Afonso de Albuquerque failed twice to conquer Aden, though the Portuguese Empire managed to rule Socotra until 1511. Portuguese in Yemen, 16th to 18th century Allied Sultan territories, Aden Mara, Kafar and Kamfar, offering stiff, vigorous resistance to the Turkish occupation. 116. The Mamluks tried to attach Yemen to Egypt, and the Portuguese by Afonso de Albuquerque occupied the island of Socotra and made an unsuccessful attack on Aden in 1513. 117. Portuguese. Starting in the 15th century, Portugal intervened, dominating the port of Aden for about 20 years and maintaining a fortified enclave in the island of Socotra during this period. From the 16th century, the Portuguese posed an immediate threat to Indian Ocean trade. The Mamluks therefore sent an army under Husayn al-Kurdi to fight the intruders. 118. The Mamluk Sultan went to Zabid in 1515 and entered into diplomatic talks with the Tahiri Sultan Amir bin Abdul Wahab for money that would be needed for the jihad against the Portuguese. Instead of confronting them, the Mamluks, however running out of food and water, landed on the coast of Yemen and began harassing the villagers of Tayama to obtain the supplies they needed. The interest of Portugal on the Red Sea consisted on the one hand of guaranteeing contacts with a Christian ally in Ethiopia and on the other of being able to attack Mecca and the Arab territories from their rear, while still having absolute dominance over trade of specials. The main intention was to dominate the commerce of the cities on the coast of Africa and Arabia. 119. To this end, Portugal sought to influence and dominate by force or persuasion all the ports and kingdoms that fought among themselves. It was common for Portugal to keep under its influence the Arab allies that were interested in maintaining independence from other Arab states in the region. 120. Modern history. The Zaydis and Ottomans. Al-Bakiriya Ottoman Mosque in Sana'a was built in 1597. The Ottomans had two fundamental interests to safeguard in Yemen: the Islamic holy cities of Mecca and Medina, and the trade route with India in spices and textiles, both threatened, and the latter virtually eclipsed, by the arrival of the Portuguese in the Indian Ocean and the Red Sea in the early 16th century. 121. Hafiz Suleiman Pasha, the Ottoman governor of Egypt, was ordered to command a fleet of 90 ships to conquer Yemen. The country was in a state of incessant anarchy and discord, as Pasha described it by saying, Sad Smiley 122, Yemen is a land with no lord, an empty province. It would be not only possible but easy to capture, and should it be captured, it would be master of the lands of India and send every year a great amount of gold and jewels to Constantinople. Ottoman soldiers and Yemeni locals. Imam al-Mutawakkil Yahya Sharaf ad-Din ruled over the northern highlands including Sana'a, while Aden was held by the last Tahirite Sultan Amir ibn Dawud. Pasha stormed Aden in 1538, killing its ruler, and extended Ottoman authority to include Zabid in 1539 and eventually Tayama in its entirety. 123. Zabid became the administrative headquarters of Yemen Lali. 123. The Ottoman governors did not exercise much control over the highlands. They held sway mainly in the southern coastal region, particularly around Zabid, Mocha, and Aden. 124. Of 80,000 soldiers sent to Yemen from Egypt between 1539 and 1547, only 7,000 survived. 125. The Ottoman accountant general in Egypt remarked, Sad Smiley 125, we have seen no foundry like Yemen for our soldiers. Each time we have sent an expeditionary force there, it has melted away like salt dissolved in water. The Ottomans sent yet another expeditionary force to Zabid in 1547, while Imam al-Mutawakkil Yahya Sharaf ad-Din was ruling the highlands independently. Yahya chose his son Ali to succeed him, a decision that infuriated his other son al-Mutawar ibn Yahya. 126. Al-Mutawar was lame, so he was not qualified for imamate. 126. He urged Oais Pasha, the Ottoman colonial governor in Zabid, to attack his father. 127. Indeed, Ottoman troops supported by tribal forces loyal to Imam al-Mutawar stormed Taiz and marched north toward Sana'a in August 1547. The Turks officially made Imam al-Mutawar a Sanjak Bey with authority over Amran. Imam al-Mutawar assassinated the Ottoman colonial governor and recaptured Sana'a, but the Ottomans, led by Özdemir Pasha, forced al-Mutawar to retreat to his fortress in Kula. Özdemir Pasha effectively put Yemen under Ottoman rule between 1552 and 1560. Özdemir died in Sana'a in 1561 and was succeeded by Mahmud Pasha. Mahmud Pasha was described by other Ottoman officials as a corrupt and unscrupulous governor, and he was displaced by Ridvan Pasha in 1564. By 1565, Yemen was split into two provinces, the highlands under the command of Ridvan Pasha and Tayama under Murad Pasha. Imam al-Mutawar launched a propaganda campaign in which he claimed that the Prophet Muhammad came to him in a dream and advised him to urge jihad against the Ottomans. 128. Al-Mutawar led the tribes to capture Sana'a from Ridvan Pasha in 1567. When Murad tried to relieve Sana'a, Highland tribesmen ambushed his unit and slaughtered all of them. 129. Over 80 battles were fought. The last decisive encounter took place in Damar around 1568, in which Murad Pasha was beheaded and his head sent to Al-Mutar in Sana'a. 129-130. By 1568, only Zabid remained under the possession of the Turks. 130. Ruins of Pillar Fortress in Amran, where Al-Mutar ibn Yahya barricaded himself against Ottoman attacks. Mocha was Yemen's busiest port in the 17th and 18th centuries. In 1632, Al-Mu'ayyid Muhammad sent an expeditionary force of 1,000 men to conquer Mecca. 131. The army entered the city in triumph and killed its governor. 131. The Ottomans sent an army from Egypt to fight the Yemenites. 131. Seeing that the Turkish army was too numerous to overcome, the Yemeni army retreated to a valley outside Mecca. 132. Ottoman troops attacked the Yemenis by hiding at the wells that supplied them with water. This plan proceeded successfully, causing the Yemenis over 200 casualties, most from thirst. 132. The tribesmen eventually surrendered and returned to Yemen. 133. Al-Mu'ayyid Muhammad died in 1644. He was succeeded by Al-Mutawakkil Ismail, another son of Al-Mansur al-Qasim, who conquered Yemen in its entirety. 134, 135, 136, 137. Yemen became the sole coffee producer in the world. 138. The country established diplomatic relations with Safavid dynasty of Persia, Ottomans of Hijaz, Mughal Empire in India, and Ethiopia, as well. In the first half of the 18th century, the Europeans broke Yemen's monopoly on coffee by smuggling coffee trees and cultivating them in their own colonies in the East Indies, East Africa, the West Indies, and Latin America. 139. The imamate did not follow a cohesive mechanism for succession, and family quarrels and tribal insubordination led to the political decline of the Qasimid dynasty in the 18th century. 140. Great Britain and the 9 regions. The British were looking for a coal depot to service their steamers en route to India. It took 700 tons of coal for a round trip from Suez to Bombay. East India Company officials decided on Aden. The British Empire tried to reach an agreement with the Zaydi Imam of Sana'a, permitting them a foothold in Mocha, and when unable to secure their position, they extracted a similar agreement from the Sultan of Liège, enabling them to consolidate a position in Aden. 141. The British managed to occupy Aden and evicted the Sultan of Liège from Aden and forced him to accept their protection. 141. In November 1839, 5,000 tribesmen tried to retake the town but were repulsed and 200 were killed. The building of the Legislative Council of Aden, built by the English in the 19th century as St. Mary's Church, was converted into the building of the Legislative Council in the 1960s, and is now a museum with emigrants from India, East Africa, and Southeast Asia. Aden grew into a world city. In 1850, only 980 Arabs were registered as original inhabitants of the city. 142. The English presence in Aden put them at odds with the Ottomans. The Turks asserted to the British that they held sovereignty over the whole of Arabia, including Yemen, as the successor of Mohammed and the chief of universal caliphate. 143. Ottoman return. The Ottoman Grand Vizier and Li of Yemen, Ahmed Muta Pasha. The Ottomans were concerned about the British expansion from the British-ruled subcontinent to the Red Sea and Arabia. They returned to the Tayama in 1849 after an absence of 2 centuries. 144. Rivalries and disturbances continued among the Zaydi Imams between them and their deputies, with the ulama, with the heads of tribes, as well as with those who belonged to other sects. Some citizens of Sana'a were desperate to return law and order to Yemen and asked the Ottoman Pasha in Tayama to pacify the country. 145. The opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 strengthened the Ottoman decision to remain in Yemen. 146. By 1873, the Ottomans succeeded in conquering the northern highlands. Sana'a became the administrative capital of Yemen. The Ottomans learned from their previous experience and worked on the disempowerment of local lords in the highland region.